The United States of America actually has two constitutions. We have one that's written, and we have one that is not. Every country has one that is not written. When the British speak of their constitution, when they speak of things that are unconstitutional, and that is something that they talk about, they don't mean that they have a written document. They don't have a written constitution in the same way that the United States does. We have a charter which defines the powers of government and sets limits and says these are the rules by which the government has to operate. Article 1 governs the legislature, Article 2 governs the executive branch, Article 3 basically just says that there will be a judiciary and doesn't leave much defining past that. And then we have some rules that the government is not allowed to violate. We call those rights. But we also have the British style of constitution. And what is that? It's basically what you're made of. When you talk about a person's constitution, you run up a hill, you're wheezing, and you say, oh, he doesn't have a very good constitution. When someone is sickly often, they don't have a very good constitution. It's a statement about what you're made of, what your values are, what your ingredients are. And that is the second sense. And we actually have a second document in the United States of America which lays out a lot of what this second constitution is. It isn't written down exactly, but the Declaration of Independence basically lays out that we're a bunch of idealistic rebels. And you see traces of that in the formal United States Constitution, like in the Second Amendment, which exists primarily to facilitate that kind of troublesome rebellion, that independent spirit. It's an odd thing. We have a national character, a national constitution of that second sense. And the American one is built on a kind of contradiction that I think is beautiful, but kind of inherently difficult to maintain. We have that rebellious streak, that individualist streak, that sense that if it isn't fair or if it isn't right or if it isn't just, we're not going to participate. That sense of get off my lawn. And then we also have the public spirit to build a nation and to say that we're going to join or die. There's that classic Revolutionary War image of all the sections of snake representing the 13 colonies saying that we need to get it together. And, we've vacillated between these two spirits. One that says we need to progress and have unity, and the other that says that we have to have autonomy and freedom. I love that. I think that kind of mercurial disposition is one of the most beautiful, beneficial, wonderful things that the United States of America has. But, it's difficult. It's difficult to manage. It is a very difficult thing to get the balance exactly right. We're always tuning it, and I think we always will be. My rights end where yours begin, and vice versa. We need to find those balances. But there's something to be said for the high-minded idealism and the slightly crotchety refusal to participate in things that we believe are unjust. That's good. Temperance in all things, man. It's difficult to get exactly right. I've been thinking about that just because the United States has gone through a few written constitutions. We had our initial one with the Articles of Confederation, and we tried to fight the Revolutionary War with this Articles of Confederation that said, we're going to unite the states, kind of. And it didn't work out well. Eventually, we tried to revise it, and that led to the creation of the 1789 Constitution, when that was ratified and we created the United States of America. And before the Civil War in the United States, we referred to them as these United States of America, where the emphasis was a little bit more individual. And then we had the Civil War, and we had a second kind of constitutional shift. The powers of the federal government were strengthened drastically by that war. There were a lot of changes made, and one of them was that Section 5 of the 14th Amendment allowed elements of the Bill of Rights to be applied against the states. So in the United States, of course, we have the right to freedom of religion and assembly and speech in the First Amendment, and the freedom to, the right to bear arms in the Second Amendment. No search or seizure, due process of law, all these ones. What most people don't understand is that before the Civil War, those only applied to the federal government, which means that individual states were free to impose a state religion, ban the guns, define who could speak, when and where. All of that stuff was fair game for a state to do. A state had full authority. And then only after the Civil War and the passage of the 13th and 14th Amendment do we get that shift where those restrictions are applied against the states themselves. And that's a weird shift because it fits both sides of our national constitution in that second sense. It supports individual liberty by saying, even if it is a state government infringing on these rights are fundamental and you can't do it. You can't take my property without due process of law, or you can't institute a national religion. Maryland, I believe, was a Catholic colony initially, and there's nothing to stop a new state from declaring that all other religions would be illegal, or banning the guns or whatever else. And the way it achieved that increase of rights, the reason why I say it's kind of an interesting contradiction that uses both sides of the American Constitution in that second sense, is because it did it by strengthening the power of government to enforce these rules against itself. Strange. It's difficult to get right. Because of these longer views, I think studying history is incredibly valuable, particularly because a lot of the things that we claim are unprecedented in American politics kind of are. American history is full of this tension and conflict, and in the days before the Civil War in the 1860s, we had senators getting beaten nearly to death with canes on the floor of the Senate. So as much as we talk about how bad our rhetoric is now, if you want to hear some really bad rhetoric, listen to some of the things that Thomas Jefferson's faction said against John Adams way back in the day. We've always been a little bit contentious, we've always been a little bit curmudgeonly, and I think that's beautiful, so long as it's tempered.